Hello and welcome to the JCPS MTSS training on the Self-Reflection and Assessment Toolkit with a focus on the high-yield practice, self-verbalization, self-questioning. I'm April Bemker, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher working with Accelerated Improvement Schools or the AIS Zone with middle and high schools.
Hi, I'm Dominique Dobson-Penn, and I am the MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher working with the AIS Zone elementary schools.
Please take a moment and type the case-sensitive bit.ly located on this slide into your web browser so you will have access to this presentation and the resources included in it for future reference. Here you will see the 6 components that make up the MTSS department or multi-tiered systems of support. MTSS focuses on overall school improvement by aligning resources and support for both teachers and students. We provide multiple levels of support for learners that address academic, social, emotional, and behavioral needs and produce professional development that is aligned with schools and the district as a whole. This concept map shows a visual of the departments within MTSS. The MTSS Academic Department provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. This department is headed by Donna Lawson. The MTSS Behavior Department, led by Sandra Hensel, supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including PBIS and restorative practices. The goal of our department, the MTSS Engagement Department, led by Dr. Naomi Brahim, is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. By clicking the toolkit image, you will access the MTSS department webpage and each toolkit. Our self-reflection and assessment toolkit includes 3 high-yield instructional practices: self-reported grades, also called student expectations, metacognitive strategies, and self-verbalization, self-questioning. Teaching students to self-reflect and self-assess to set appropriate goals leads to higher student outcomes. Minority students and students with disabilities tend to underestimate their achievement. We, as teachers, need to assist all students with goal setting. Along with helping our students to set realistic and accurate goals, we should also equip all of our students with metacognitive strategies and tools to help them think about their thinking and self-verbalize and self-question as they are learning. Successful implementation of this high-yield practice occurs when teachers provide opportunities for students to self-verbalize and self-question in order to regulate and reflect on their learning. Self-verbalization and self-questioning is a metacognitive strategy focused on problem solving in any content area, whether it be while reading text-based information or working through application-based problems. In today's training, we will learn how to utilize self-verbalization and self-questioning with our students, and you as a learner will have an opportunity to brainstorm ways to incorporate these practices in your classroom. Self-verbalization involves students expressing their individual learning out loud, such as the think aloud. Self-questioning is students asking questions of themselves that relate to their own learning. The highest level of learning occurs when one self-directs his or her learning and asks questions to improve. The practice involves intrinsic signs of learning that are individualized to the learner and includes internal dialogue to clarify understanding. Some benefits of self-verbalization and self-questioning are: it provides guidance to students on how to monitor their own learning, how to check for understanding, insight into what they know and do not know, and how to move forward in their learning. In this infographic on self-verbalization, notice that this process can and should involve dialogue between students using a turn and talk or other strategies. When students self-verbalize or outwardly express one's thinking and learning during a turn and talk, it should involve collaborative learning with accountable talk. The student's partner should actively listen, summarize, and restate what his or her partner shared, and they both should build on each other's thoughts. As teachers, we are supposed to incorporate effective modeling, engaging our students by showing them how to perform a skill while describing each step with a rationale. This provides students with both a visual and verbal example of what they will be expected to do. In addition to modeling, though, teachers should also regularly use the think aloud process, which can be described as eavesdropping on someone's thinking. We need to verbalize our thinking as we read a text or solve a problem to bring to the surface complex thinking processes, and we also need to allow our students to do the same, verbalize their thinking for us and for other students.
This brief video shows the distinction between modeling and thinking aloud.
A think aloud is different than a model. And I think elementary knocks my socks off with this. Former secondary teacher, I didn't even know about these. It wasn't until I was coaching I really appreciated the power of a think aloud. Let me explain the difference between a think aloud and a model, because for some of us, we might be thinking we're doing a think aloud, but you're doing a model. It's not enough. If I was teaching a kid how to shoot a free throw, I could just model it. Okay, yeah, you're a form. Woo, we got to work on this. Let me show you. Okay, so you get to the free throw line, and this is a free throw. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. Got it? Okay, I'm modeling it. You getting it? Got it? Good. Your turn. Okay, nothing's really going to change about his thinking or his ability to do it. Let me switch that. This is a think aloud. Okay, so we're going to learn how to shoot a free throw. So the first thing I do when I come to the line is I look down. I'm right-handed, my right foot slightly in front of my left. That's not really obvious, but that is what's happening. Here's definitely what's not obvious. I'm leaning forward. You can't see that. Let me tell you, I'm leaning forward. I'm on the balls of my feet. I'm leaning forward. Now, let me tell you where I'm looking, because you can't tell. No, I'm not looking at the rim. You look at the rim and you're going to hit the rim. You don't look at the rim. You look up and over behind the rim. That's where I'm looking. All right? So I'm leaning forward. My knees are flexed. I'm looking up and over behind the rim. Now I'm just hold the ball. You don't need to spin it. You don't need to do it. Just hold the ball. All right? Hold the ball. I'm looking up and over the rim. I'm looking up and over the rim. I'm leaning forward. Now here's what I'm saying to myself. I'm thinking up, 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 snap. Up, 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 snap. Up, 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 snap. That's what I'm doing. Up, 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 snap. Okay, now I want you to do this. I want you to talk me through what you're thinking as you do it. That's a think aloud. Just doing one. Just showing them how to put two sentences together, how to insert a transition. How did you know which transition? How did you know we needed a transition? How did you get there? All this buzz about growth mindset, we got to replace their thoughts with the thoughts of the expert. A think aloud is different than a model.
The video emphasizes that we should teach through an example, not just tell about an example. If you are doing an effective think aloud, you should anticipate struggles, questions, and points of confusion, and then share your slow motion self-talk throughout the entire process. Self-questioning is the catalyst needed for monitoring one's own learning and making needed adjustments. Allowing student collaboration and use of accountable talk fosters self-questioning. To share a quote from Developing Assessment Capable Visible Learners. The most effective student we know of is a self-questioning one, a learner who can pose questions to their self and act upon the answers is one who is virtually unstoppable. The ability to do so is one that develops through lots of opportunities to engage in self-reflection and self-questioning, which has an effect size of 0.64. There are 3 types of questions that can be asked when looking at text of any kind. Literal questions, which have the answer right there in the text. Inferential questions that require readers to think deeply and use context clues to look beyond what is stated outright. and evaluative questions, where readers must make a judgment to take a position based on different perspectives. Students need to be taught self-questioning skills and specifically what questions they should be asking themselves as they're reading, so they're equipped to answer all three types of questions they might encounter. When engaging in problem solving, students might utilize a variety of question types when self-questioning, such as comprehensive questions, like what is this problem all about? Or they might ask themselves connection questions, including how is the problem different from or similar to problems that I've already solved? Or possibly strategy questions, such as what's an appropriate strategy I can use to solve this problem? And throughout the process, students should also ask reflection questions like, does this make sense? Or why am I stuck? It's important to give students the opportunity to practice developing good questions that promote thinking and inquiry into a topic. The previous two slides and this slide give you some sample questions as well as question starts to help students with this process. Teachers can help students with self-verbalization and self-questioning by modeling the process and by asking clarifying questions to get students to the desired outcome. Some examples are listed on this slide, such as how confident are you in your ability to accomplish the goal today? And how did the lesson or activity go? On this slide, we've included some cooperative learning options and Kagan structures that you could use to engage your students in self-verbalization, self-questioning. You can just click on each underlined name to access more information about any of these. There are also other structures that could be used beyond the ones we have listed here. These linked classroom resources can also be used when promoting self-verbalization and self-questioning with your students. The examples can be adapted to fit the needs of your students. We've covered many of the strategies for implementation listed on this slide in our training today. This list of strategies is also included in our self-reflection and assessment toolkit. We did want to point out one strategy: to use metacognitive action checklist or learning logs or response journals as a tool for students to reflect on learning, self-verbalize and self-question in writing rather than out loud. Take a moment and pause the video if needed to reflect on how you might use information and resources from this training to help you incorporate self-verbalization and self-questioning in your classroom. There are many things we as teachers need to consider when incorporating any instructional practice in our classroom, including self-verbalization, self-questioning. In a culturally responsive classroom, teachers should recognize that learning is demonstrated by a continuum of performance rather than discrete skills displayed at designated points of time. By equipping all students with the tools to effectively self-verbalize and self-question, they can engage in self-reflective practices, which will help to increase their expectations of achievement. Some considerations to make with all students, but especially ECE students, are to allow more opportunities for students to display problem-solving skills and to evaluate their learning. We should provide students with more coaching on self-verbalization, self-questioning throughout the entire process so that they can work to become more self-regulated learners. When considering deeper learning and project-based learning, it's important to teach students to measure their own progress, determine next steps, and utilize metacognitive strategies and self-verbalization, self-questioning, so that they can better understand the question or answer the question. What have I learned? What am I struggling with? And what's next? To help effectively implement the high-yield practice of self-verbalization, self-questioning with your students, we have provided you with a planning tool, which is linked on this slide, that you can use during an upcoming PLC. This slide includes references and resources. Some are hyperlinked with additional information. Thank you for joining us to learn more about self-verbalization, self-questioning. For more information about the MTSS toolkits and other high-yield practices, please visit our website.